Hello and welcome to the Talk Football podcast. We are back for season 2 and we are 1 week away from the start of the Premier League season. I have a guest with me. He's back again. I can see him again. We're doing it on Skype again and he's wearing a different Manchester United shirt this time. It is Andrew Reid. Welcome back to the pod, mate.
Oh, it's been a long time, Hodges, but good to be back. Good to start talking football again.
It is. It's amazing to be back talking. I've had a bit of a break from obviously recording. We've had the Euros to get through. I'm not going to touch too much on the Euros because I think it's been and gone. We've moved forward. We had the heartbreak, and we've got it all to look forward to again next year.
Oh yeah.
But where else can we start? There's only really one place we can start, and it's your noisy neighbours from up the road.
It's the £100 million.
So, 100 million, Jack Grealish. Now, you may not have seen this yet, but there's actually a video from Christian Perslow on the Aston Villa website, and it explains everything about the Jack Grealish transfer. I presume you haven't seen that yet.
No, I haven't. Honestly, the only thing I've seen is Pep Guardiola's version. So, City won £60 million with all their winnings and that.
Yeah.
So technically, they only spent 40 million on Grealish, which is technically is a good deal for City as well. As much as I hate them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I would strongly urge anyone to go and watch the video from Perslow because it's very, very rarely that you get, chief executives from a club to come out and be so transparent and
an inside man as well, explaining the whole situation.
And it makes sense, and it actually it puts this whole transfer into a light that I've never seen before. So I won't go into too much detail about what he says, but basically he said when Jack signed his new contract, which wasn't that long ago, him and his agent stipulated that they wanted a clause in the contract for a certain amount of money. Aston Villa put that figure in of 100 mil, and they were all in agreement with that. Christian Perslow openly admitted, he said, I didn't think anyone would come along and pay, the way City throw money around, my club Chelsea, the way we throw money about.
United and the minute as well.
Yeah, same. United. And to be honest, if you'd have done the Sancho deal maybe 12 months earlier, then you may well have got close to doing 100 million. But with Jack, the clause in the contract was 100 million, and it had to be a club that was in the Champions League. And to be honest, I can't blame him. He's an ambitious lad. He's 25. He's given 19 years to Villa. And I think it's probably about the right time for him.
Yeah, I mean, Villa last season, the season they actually had,
very good,
absolutely unreal. So it's probably the best time now because they can bring in, like they've brought in Leon Bailey already.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at what they've done, I mean, they've got their business done early and
already,
Mate, and people say, they're spending the Grealish money early. I think that maybe they would have done this anyway. Even if Jack hadn't gone, because then you would have had a team built around Jack. If he'd have stayed, team built around Jack that maybe could have pushed sort of top 6. And you never know.
I would love Villa to have another good season like they did last season, and the players they brought in already, like Leon Bailey, Danny Ings. I still like Danny Ings.
I tell you what, I mean that one in particular. That caught everyone out. Not even like Sky Sports News.
No one knew about it.
No one knew. It just bang. It was out there. It popped up on Villa's on Twitter that it was a done deal and they'd signed it. And I was like, "Whoa! Do you know what? That's a great signing." I mean,
that's a great signing for him himself as well. Like, obviously, the past couple of years he's had. Obviously, he didn't really have good at Liverpool. Then he went to Southampton, sort of rebuilt his career, and now he's gone to Villa, where they're on the up. I reckon that will help him as well as Villa.
Well, I think is if he stays fit, he guarantees you goals. And then when you look at what they've done with Buendia, who naturally he can play in any wide position, as well as like a number 10. So I think that's a really good signing.
Obviously, being down the road from Norwich, I know quite a lot of Norwich fans, and they're upset, but they're also glad for Buendia as well. That once again he's took that step he's gone from Norwich winning the Championship to Aston Villa, who could be fighting for Europa League, or maybe, as you say, top 4 next season.
I mean, like, even with Norwich, I know obviously quite keen on Cantwell as well.
Todd Cantwell,
very good player.
He's a good player, but I don't reckon he's like the Aston Villas, the Evertons. I can see him leave Norwich for a top.
Yeah, I think he could be. I think that there's a lot in the locker. He's had a taste of the Premier League, and I think with better players around him, I honestly think he could be. It could be another Mason Mount.
I hope so, because he's actually from the town I live in. So literally, he is the Deerham boy. And they always go on about Todd Cantwell. It's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, and yet again, I mean, it would be a shame for Norwich, obviously, to come up and lose another. I mean, if you looked at maybe Norwich's like 3 outstanding players that people were sniffing around, it was Buendia, Cantwell, and Aarons.
You could even throw in Timu Pukki as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure if he's quite good enough for them for the Premier League. They may have to go out and sign someone.
It may be like the whole Pukki situation. It's not top 10, but it's above relegation, under top 10 team.
I don't see anyone coming in and making a move for him, but my worry is if Norwich really want to have a stab at staying up, that they're probably going to need to go out and sign a striker. But obviously now they're going to have the money to do that. I mean, they've already got 30 million plus in the bank from the Buendia deal. Going back to Villa though, obviously their fans would be disappointed about losing Jack, but I think they should be really excited about what they've already signed. So for them, it's an interesting one. I mean, and we can't talk about Man City without talking about the situation with Messi as well, because I mean that one. I mean, I thought he was gonna leave initially. A year ago when he'd put in the transfer request.
Yeah. I did tell you though on TikTok though. I did tell you Messi would leave Barca, didn't I?
I honestly thought he'd stay, and to be honest, he wants to stay. The club want him to stay, and it's a case of the Spanish league rules. So the deal that they agreed with Messi, it was like 50% of what his current wage was, which was close to $1 million a week, which is insane.
That's mental.
It's insane. That's completely unsustainable. Particularly when you've had the best part of over a year with no fans in the ground and with no revenue. So that's insane. So he agrees to take a 50% pay cut, and so that still puts him on
half a million.
$500,000 a week. Now, what Barcelona tried to do to get around these rules, they wanted to sign him on a 5-year contract, 2 years of which would be a playing contract, and 3 years would be an ambassadorial role, and they would pay the 2 years playing contract over the course of a 5-year contract. And the leagues were like, this is the way I've read it anyway. I might be slightly wrong on the details, but this is kind of the way I've read it. And then, so they would spread the cost of his 2-year contract basically across 5 years. So he'd have another 2 years, finish his career out, and then he'd become like a club ambassador or coach or whatever. Yeah. And they would continue to be able to afford his 2 years structured over 5. Messi was happy with that. Club were happy with that. And the leagues put a block on it and said, well, no, you either make it work financially, which would have meant them selling a few players. Now, I know for a fact that they wanted to sell Jordi Alba. Coutinho's on the books on big money. And there was a couple of other players that they wanted to push out the door to make, which would have got them under the bar. And of course, those players are like, well, we're on big money here. We've got contracts left. Why should we go? We don't want to go.
No.
So can't.
Why would you want to leave like one of the top teams ever?
Yeah.
To go, who's gonna? Once again, you got to find these teams that can afford their wages.
Mm.
It's the whole same thing with Messi.
So with City, obviously they're chasing. Obviously now, Jack's not going to be on cheap wages. You would have thought maybe probably close to $200,000 a week, if not more. I would have thought. In fact, it's quite funny actually because nothing's actually been said about the wages.
No, they haven't actually, have they? They've been sneaky about that.
Not that I've seen anyway. Yeah, but now this leaves a bit of a quandary. So under financial fair play, could they get Messi in as well, or is it almost completely the only club in the world that could possibly do this would be obviously PSG. I know there's been a few rumours about Roman throwing his hat in the ring for him. So I can't see that we financially could do that. Not him and Lukaku. If Lukaku happens,
the Chelsea. I mean, once again, you've got to find. Can Chelsea throw £500,000 a week?
There's no doubt that we can afford it. It's a case of, I suppose, it's a case of whether under whatever the financial fair play. I mean, I'm so confused by what the rules are. I think in Spain, it's you can use on wages and your outlay. You can use 110% of what your revenue is, and I think financial fair play kind of works the same sort of way across the board. So I would imagine that the Premier League rules are probably fairly similar, but that's something I'd have to check on, and maybe we bring that up in the next episode. But it's an interesting one because should Messi move for? Should Pep move for Messi? And there's obviously a connection between the two.
Oh yeah.
Where does that leave Harry Kane?
I can't see Harry Kane going to Tottenham, going to City. I really can't.
It's an interesting.
If they do, it's either one. City. It's got to be one or the other, in it.
Well, I don't. Well, there's. I mean, there's been the big hoo-ha whether or not Harry was going to come. You know, whether he dodged training. Harry's come out and made a statement. Tottenham haven't made any kind of comment at all. And it's a funny one because I look at it and I think clearly City don't want to pay 160 million. Daniel Levy doesn't want to budge from 160 million.
No.
Now, the only way I can see it not being 160 million is if Kane puts in a written transfer request. Now, if he does that, obviously, he forfeits any claim to a sign-on bonus, which is why players tend not to put in transfer requests.
The thing is, as well, do Man City no disrespect to Harry Kane, he's a cracking striker, but do Man City really want to throw 160 million at a striker that could be, once again, he's done it every season so far, injured for 3 or 4 months?
I mean, they could cope with it with the squad they've got, without question.
Oh, definitely. But then, money-wise,
and I don't even think the age, paying that sort of money, because they'd make that back in probably merchandise and shirt sales and image rights deals and everything. So I don't think they would necessarily worry about his age or anything like that. I suppose it's just a case of whether they want to pay that much for Harry Kane. And yes, he guarantees you. I've no doubts if he went there, he'd score loads. But
you got to think, you got Grealish feeding him balls, De Bruyne, Sterling, Foden, Bernardo Silva. You're like, oh my god.
Well, to see this brings me on to another point. So obviously with Jack coming in, there's obviously rumours, but not rumours, that he's openly actually said he wants to leave because he wants more game time. So Bernardo Silva is one for sure that will probably go before the window closes if someone comes up with the money. I've no doubt they will because he's a quality player. And apparently there's one or two others. I kind of see. I see where Jack fits into the way they play because he's very much in style, very much a Pep kind of player. Great on the ball, great at retaining possession.
Yep, skillful,
can play anywhere across the front line. I struggle to see where Kane fits into the way they play because they don't typically. Even when Aguero was there, I mean, for the last year, Aguero hasn't really played much, and even when Aguero was at his real pomp and peak, was probably before Pep, but don't get me wrong, scored a lot of goals since Pep's been there. Pep came in 20? Is it 2015? He's been
there 5 years now, isn't he? Yeah. So 2015.
Back end of 2015. And Pep doesn't tend to play with a traditional. When he's gone for a traditional out and out sort of like proper centre forward, it's not really worked out that well.
No, you look at when he was at Barca, his front three was Messi, David Villa, and Pedro.
Yeah, and then of course after that you had Neymar. Well, did Neymar come after? Was Neymar after Pep? I think he was, wasn't
he? Yeah, I think so. But then say Pedro's a winger, Villa's a winger, Messi's a winger.
Me because they signed Ibrahimovic, and it didn't work out.
No.
Now, obviously, a lot of that maybe was to do with Ibrahimovic's ego. But
understatement.
I think I'm not completely comparing Kane to Ibrahimovic because that's insanity. But you see where I'm going with that with the sort of style of striker.
You also want to go another one, Samuel Eto'o.
Well, yeah, it fell out of him and all.
Fell out of him. Pep's not. If you look at all the strikers that Pep has signed, he's only signed Jesus.
Yeah. Well,
he's not actually signed another striker, has he?
No, not in his time there. No.
No.
And
generally, Jesus is the only one.
Generally, he likes to play with a very mobile forward unit.
Yeah.
Which has tended to be more often than not, with his legs going a little bit on Aguero, he's tended to play with like a false nine. So I'm not so sure. And this leaves Kane in a real quandary because if they don't get it done, what's his option? There is no option, especially, Chelsea may have been an option. I know we were interested in him prior to the Euros, but obviously a Tottenham player coming to Chelsea it's
not going to look good, is it? There's also talks of Man United as well.
There was. Now obviously you got Eddie. Yeah, you got Eddie for another year.
Yeah.
Obviously you signed Sancho now, which I think is a fantastic signing. And I think it might sound insane, but I think 73 million is going to turn out to be a bargain.
Considering last year we were trying to sign him for 108.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
don't choke on it, mate.
I am having a cheeky crabbies while we're doing this, so I was at work for a long shift today, so I'm treating myself to a cheeky crabbies while we do this. To be honest, though, I think United fans, I think you'd be fairly pleased with the business you've done.
Especially, I know he's isolating at the minute. I think that's what the rumours are with Varane as well.
I think Varane, don't get me wrong, he's got a mistake in him every now and then, but I think he's a quality player and certainly better than the other centre backs. I think he'd be a natural partner for Harry
Maguire, definitely. And it's looking like the old Rio and Vidic again.
Well, one thing with Varane and Harry as well, to be fair, very good on the ball. So passing out from the back. To be honest, I'm a little bit worried about United this year because I like Cavani. I've always been a massive Cavani fan, and I think I personally would have given him a bit longer. I would have given him a 3-year contract, to be honest. But maybe he wants to just do another year and go and get a big payday in America or China or whatever. I don't know.
There's rumours that he wants to go back home to Uruguay before he retires. So that I can't blame him. He's 34 at the minute.
Yeah. Class player.
Big money at Man United.
It's going to be interesting to see. There's one transfer, and this one's been knocking about since more or less the Euros ended, and that's with you signing Trippier. Now, don't get me wrong, a fantastic player, had a great European Championships, had an amazing season for Atletico.
Why?
What? Yeah. Now, see, this is the question. This is the question I've asked. Why? Because I personally think you've got the best defensive right back in the league.
Wan-Bissaka, class.
Yeah, absolute class. And I think defensively, brilliant player. Attacking wise, maybe he could get, but that's something that I think
massively. Yeah, but then he's still a kid.
I think that's something that will come for him anyway, and I think obviously playing with, particularly with someone like Sancho on that right hand side, I could see that being a real lethal partnership.
Well, it's working on the other side when Rashford's fit. It was Shaw and Rashford on the other side.
Yeah, I mean when you look at it, it's quite tasty, isn't it? So your front three potentially, you're looking at
Sancho, Eddie, and Rash. Yeah.
And then you've still got the likes of occasionally you've still got Martial. He may well move on. He will end up being Kane's replacement at Tottenham. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
I reckon I'll do him some good.
I think he probably needs to leave, but so yeah. And then of course you still got Greenwood on top of that, as well as other good players in the squad.
I'm no disrespect to Kieran Trippier though, but we say we got Wan-Bissaka, we got that Dalot as backup, absolute last backup. Then you got the centre backs, and then you got Luke Shaw and Alex Telles and left backs.
Yeah, and don't look like Telles is going anywhere.
Yeah, no,
I'll tell you what,
he's a good player, but we don't need him.
You've got the base, but there's a base there of a real tiny squad starting to come together. And of course, you've got you've got Henderson. I would imagine Henderson will probably start as your number one this season. I would have thought.
I do feel sorry for De Gea though. Like, he's obviously been our number one. He's saved our skin plenty of times through the years.
I'm surprised he hasn't moved on. I'm surprised he hasn't gone.
Maybe he's actually trying to fight.
Maybe a possible return to Atletico, but maybe obviously because of the money situation in Spain, maybe that's just not on the cards anymore. I've got a few other things like I've been looking at transfer wise as well, because a lot of the other clubs have been particularly quiet. I mean, Leicester got their business done pretty early.
Yeah.
And I don't really know too much about the striker they brought in, so I'm not really going to touch on that yet. I'm going to come back to Leicester in another episode, because obviously, especially after the result of I don't know if you saw it, the Community Shield.
Oh yeah, City lost. Ian Nacho, their former
player, and that. Do you know what? I'm really pleased for Brendan Rodgers, actually. Really big. I mean, I know obviously that there was nowhere near the strongest, Manchester City side out, but
no, 100 million sitting on the bench.
But I'm going to come back to Leicester because I've got a friend of mine that he's a Leicester fan, and I'm hoping to get him to come on the pod and talk about Leicester. He didn't really. He felt a bit down towards the end of the season, despite winning obviously the FA Cup and beating us in the FA Cup final. He was a bit down about not getting Champions League football, but I'm going to try and talk him into coming on. But that's for another day.
One question for you though at the minute, Mr.
Yeah, go for it.
Romelu Lukaku.
Listen,
as a Chelsea fan,
I'm a big fan. I always have been. I thought he was never given a fair shot at Chelsea first time round.
No way was he given a chance. He was 19 when he was at your lot before.
Yeah, and he was kind of like signed as like a possible like long-term replacement for Didier. Didier. Yeah, well, Didier was kind of like his kind of hero at the time as well. Looked up to him, and I think we should have been more paid. I certainly think he should have been given a shot, but the managers we had at the time obviously didn't fancy it. I think the price, I suppose, given the current market, it's not a surprise. It looks like it could go through in the next day or two, and you're looking around maybe 100, 110.
It was like 91.3, wasn't it? 91.3 million.
Yeah, and I think with add-ons and stuff like that, it takes it to just over 100 mil. I think.
Where does that leave Timo Werner?
Well, Timo kind of plays in this sort of left forward position anyway, and for most of the season, he played there, and we were playing kind of like Havertz as a false nine. I think someone will probably go. Obviously, Giroud's already gone.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of expecting Tammy to go, whether that be on loan or whether someone stumps up the 40 million we're after. I don't know. I wouldn't like to see Tammy go to Arsenal.
No, obviously, it's also West Ham though.
Yeah, and yeah, again, West Ham have got a good squad, and I think David Moyes is a very, very good manager. So I don't want Tammy to go to somewhere where he's going to improve them to a point where they start sniffing around top 6, top 4. So I know Southampton obviously need a striker.
They do now.
So me personally, I wouldn't like to see Tammy leave the club permanently, but he needs game time. So I'd like to see maybe loan him to Southampton for the season. I think that's a good fit for Tammy. I think that's a good fit for Southampton. I think the way Hasenhüttl plays, it plays into the hands of forwards and strikers. They do play quite attacking football, with particularly set pieces and stuff like that. Ward-Prowse whipping them in. And I think a partnership of Shay Adams and Tammy Abraham would be quite good.
I like your thinking there. That's actually a good lineup.
Yeah.
Redmond on the wing, putting balls in, or maybe coming.
I wouldn't.
Tammy's like a goal poacher, isn't he? He's not so much.
I think they've still got Gineppo there. I don't think that was a loan deal. I think they have. I think Gineppo's still there. So yeah, you have wingers putting balls into the box. Ward-Prowse with his set pieces. I think that might be a decent move for him. I think maybe he is thinking bigger, which I
still think he's thinking like Europe, so that's why I was more thinking of West Ham.
Yeah,
just to help him out for you. Obviously, Lingard helped him out. I could see Tammy do.
There's a lot of teams that could push towards the top 6.
It's literally anyone's season, obviously, except for Man City.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly, you do not know who. Obviously, you sort of got like the usual boys in the top 4, but then for the rest of the league, you ain't got Scooby.
I don't want to touch too much on Leicester, but there is one player that I want to mention because he's been linked with Arsenal, and I think you probably know who I'm going to say, Maddison,
the former Norwich boy.
I think if he signs for, I think that's a massive mistake for his career if he signs for Arsenal.
Oh, definitely, Leicester.
For me, Leicester are miles ahead of where Arsenal are at the moment. I think he immediately
is in it for that.
I mean, he immediately improves Arsenal if he signs for them
massively,
without question. Because I don't think if they had like a forward line of, say, Aubameyang, Pepe, Saka, Maddison, Smith Rowe,
feeding them three.
Yeah, Maddison, Smith Rowe behind them with like a holding midfielder like Partey, if he can ever stay fit. Like, they might improve and get better, but I think for him, I think he should stay where he is. I really do.
He's playing so much better as a Leicester player because.
Well, I'll tell you what you don't get if he moves elsewhere, and if he moves to Arsenal, what he hasn't got a Wilfred Ndidi behind him.
And he's got an injured Thomas Partey behind him.
Exactly.
But the whole Maddison, if Maddison does leave up for Arsenal, obviously Leicester. When you say Leicester, you don't think like they're big boys. They're a big boy side. Obviously, recently they have, but then if you talk about Arsenal, he's.
See, Leicester have also signed that. Is it Boubakary Soumaire? Now, a lot of clubs were chasing him, and a lot of clubs were thinking about putting a hell of a lot of money down for him. Just won the French league as well with Lille.
Lille, yeah.
It could be a devastating partnership in midfield if you had, say, Soumaire, Ndidi. So many quality players.
they just ain't got the history of like the big boys, like Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, City.
I think to get history, you've got to create history, and they're certainly doing that. That's for sure.
Definitely.
Now I'm going to step outside the Premier League because I was obviously a friend of mine was going to join me on this pod as well, because I wanted to grill him about Derby. He's a Derby fan.
Ooh.
So we're just going to do a little bit on Derby, because it's popped up. Rooney's obviously been in the news recently for other reasons.
Where have we heard that before?
Yeah, but we won't touch on Rooney's personal life. So I want to do a little bit on Derby because obviously, I followed them a little bit because obviously when Frank was there, Frank being close to my heart, I followed what he was doing at Derby, and it's a bizarre situation. So I'm not too sure if you're quite familiar with the position they're in.
I know they've got like 9 first-team players or something like that.
Well, they're also under a transfer embargo where they cannot sign anyone other than free agents.
Right.
So this is for anyone out there. This is that is listening to this and that don't really know the history of how Derby have got himself in a position. So obviously the club's been up for sale for quite a while. So on the 7th of April, the agreement for Derby to be sold to businessman Eric Alonso and his Consortium Sports Group, right? So that gets agreed. Now 14th of May, that buyout gets called off because the guy basically can't prove that he's got the money. So obviously Derby's accounting practices ain't what they should be. So they then get fined towards the end of June. They get fined £100,000 for their accounting practices, but they escape a points deduction for that, which obviously would have seen them relegated. Now they just about stayed up by the skin of their teeth.
Literally last game of the season, weren't it?
Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday 3-3. They just about stay up, and then the shit hits the fan. So they now get hit with this transfer embargo on the 20th of July, which allows them to only sign free agent players, providing that they follow a strict wage budget.
Which sort of nappers them as it does,
Well, it does because I mean, and obviously, people are now hovering around for their best players. So, there's already been a few clubs showing an interest in Tom Lawrence. They've obviously got a few other good young players in that there as well, which they cannot afford to lose. I kind of feel sorry for Rooney.
Oh, definitely, it's his first proper club.
His first job, and he's already
just been thrown in the deep end. There you go, mate. It's a shit club. Try and get him out of it.
I mean, the thing is though, I look at Derby and everything is there. Everything is there. I mean, the catchment area, in terms of like fan base, is there to fill the stadium if you can get it.
It's a good stadium as well.
Well, I was up there a couple of months ago. Well, if anyone wants to have a look on the TikTok channel, there's a video of my mate Adam who was gonna come on the pod, and the stadium's amazing. I haven't been inside yet. I'm going up in September. I'm hoping that I can get in for a game while I'm up there because I want to see. I've seen it obviously on TV, but I've not been able to like get inside and experience it. But and I know Derby fans are passionate fans. They love their club, and it's a one club town.
Yes.
And I do feel sorry. I feel sorry for Rooney because obviously he's in a position where he almost can't win. He can't get in players that are his kind of players. I think I've got a feeling they'll go down.
What else can they do? I mean, was it a friendly that they fielded 9 senior players and the rest were academies? Like, wow.
Yeah.
Now, how long ago has another club done that? It was a couple of years ago.
You're only talking
Portsmouth, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're only talking 3 years ago. They're in the playoff final for the richest game in football. They stood a few kicks away from a 120 million pound Premier League windfall, and now they're in this position. I find it bizarre. I'm so kind of surprised that someone with a lot of money hasn't gone in there and picked the club up because you're obviously going to pick it up fairly cheap. But I worry for Rooney in terms of his managerial career. Because obviously he's not going to be on cheap money himself.
No.
So, and I think the easiest thing to do when a club's misfortunes ain't quite going the right way is to change the manager because you're changing one man. You can't easily change a 22 player playing squad.
No.
So I've got a feeling that if they don't do so well in their first 5 games, I would expect that the club will probably sack him.
As much as I hate this, literally as much as I hate to say it, I agree with you there because they're going to have to bring someone who's totally unexperienced on a cheap wage. I mean, there is a lot of free agent players out there.
There is.
Daniel Sturridge, Jack Wilshere.
Well, Jack Wilshere was one that was being mentioned. I'm not sure.
He always said he'll take a pay cut to. He always said he'll take a pay cut to help Derby out.
Yeah, I think if they could get someone like Sturridge to help score goals, obviously it'd be if he can stay fit. I mean, they had a 1-1 draw today with Huddersfield.
It's a start.
It's a point on the board. But bearing in mind though, they took the lead in the game, and they conceded just before half time. So yeah, it's a positive for them, I suppose, that they haven't lost. But I worry. I worry. I worry for. So I've got obviously a bit of a soft spot for Derby now. But and looking at,
imagine probably before the transfer window ends. Like obviously, I know Rooney's obviously got a massive connection with Man United. Probably get some youngsters in.
Yeah,
he's got to do something.
Looking at and if you look at the next few fixtures, I mean they've got Salford in the EFL Cup, but I'm not really worried about that if I was them. Peterborough's going to be a tough game, and that's away.
Oh, London Road. Ooh.
Yeah, then they're away to Hull, home to Middlesbrough, and then early doors as well in the season, the big one for them, which is a home against Forest. Right now, that would be the fifth game.
That's the make or break.
Possibly so. So if he's got a couple of wins in the bag by then, and they turn Forest over, I think that makes or breaks his season.
Even turning Middlesbrough over.
It's the history though. It's the history between the two clubs, the rivalry and the history between Derby and Forest. So, you almost put yourself in folklore if you're a Derby manager and you turn Forest over.
Imagine the scenes. Is that at Pride Park or Forest?
No, that's at Pride Park. Yeah. And one thing I do want to do, and anyone that is, I don't want this podcast to always be about Premier League. So I want fans from all over to get involved with this. So if you're listening to this and you happen to be a fan of a club outside the Premier League, you can message in, and I will tell you what at the end of the pod, I'll tell you how to get in contact with us. But I want people from clubs outside the Premier League. I think that's where the real
passion for the game is.
I think so. I mean, I love the Championship. I think the Championship is one of the toughest. I think it's one of the toughest divisions to do anything in Europe. Yeah. It's a 46 game season. That's not an easy thing.
No, I do have a mate on TikTok. He used to work with me, and I've tagged him in a few videos, and he is a full-on Forest fan.
It ain't Banoffee, is it?
No, he's not a football fan, but his name's Alfie,
mate,
and he is a full-on Forest fan.
Well, we'll have a chat with Alfie, and it'd be interesting. We can get him on. We can get a freeway going on the old Skype.
Like, imagine talking to him after the derby. If you had your mate in,
well, it'd be interesting actually. If we could get
Adam in just for the derby Forest game.
If we could get Adam in, and we could get you have a chat with Ad, you have a chat with your mate, and if we could get all four of us in on an episode talking specifically if it's just after the game as well, because obviously you've got we'd have the fallout from both sides of it then.
Who's going to win an argument?
Well, there we go. That is the challenge. That's the challenge for everyone out there that's listening to this episode. And even if you support clubs that if you listen to this, I don't know. We have got a few far-flung listeners. We've had people in the United States that have listened to episodes from the first. Yeah, mate. Yeah, and we've even had a few countries in Africa that we've got a few listeners.
Ooh.
And it ain't just been ones or twos either. There's been quite a few downloads from those territories. So I'm really pleased that my little pod has breached the shores of our little island.
It's honestly, that's really good to hear, mate. Because literally, obviously, you get them, mate. You obviously got their mates over in these countries. Listen to them, like, oh, mate, give this podcast a listen and that.
Yeah,
it's just going to spread all over.
I mean, I'm really chuffed, and I've been kind of blown away. I didn't really know what to expect when I started doing this, and obviously you have to start somewhere, and you can never really, you're not going to grow massive overnight. No. But I'm really pleased. I've had, well, it's just gone over 300 downloads total. Well, bearing in mind we only put out three full-length episodes, which was or was it 4? I can't remember now. I have to have a look. But we had obviously the United episode with Angie, who's with me now, which if you haven't listened to, by the way, go and give that a listen to. It's a really good listen. It was the first club focused podcast I did.
Your first ever? Oh.
It was, yeah. And then obviously we've had a Spurs one that I did with my mate Paul, and Paul came back for, we did an England one as well with, and we picked our squads, and that was before the Euros. And Paul will be coming back on another episode as well, because obviously, depending on what happens with Kane, Paul's going to have a lot to say about Spurs.
Oh,
he's not been an happy bunny.
They could still say with Nuno coming in as well, there might be some ups about that as well.
Well, I mean, if we just, I think let's finish off with Spurs. Because it's a funny one with Nuno. Clearly, Spurs.
He's not signed no Portuguese players yet.
Well, no, he did. Well, Wolves was kind of like little Portugal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But clearly, Spurs wasn't his first choice. You know, because I think he probably quite fancied the Everton job.
Yeah,
and then he was touted with the Palace job. Clearly, Nuno wasn't. Daniel Levy's first choice, but they kind of ended up together. A 2-year contract is kind of neither here or there. It doesn't really show any kind of commitment to the manager long term.
Faith as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, and not only that, if you're a player that potentially like is already at the club, i.e. a Harry Kane, if you've got a manager coming in that's only been given a 2-year contract, what does that say about whether or not you want to stay? Or any player for that matter, because clearly you're saying, well, you're not sure about the guy, so I'm only going to give him 2 years. If it works out, well, brilliant. We can can give a new contract at any time. But for me, there's part of me that says Levy wants Pochettino back, and I know Paul was very, he wanted Poch back. So there's unfinished business there with Pochettino, but obviously Pochettino's now signed a contract extension with PSG.
And could possibly sign the best player in the damn world. Why would he leave that to go play?
Wow.
If Harry Kane leaves, his best player is going to be Song.
Well, yeah, and obviously Sonny has signed a new deal. I don't know. Maybe they're going to play. Maybe they won't sign another striker Spurs. Maybe they'll play Sonny through the middle. Obviously, they've spent £47 million a day on a defender from Atalanta, Romero. He looks a good player, but you don't know how he's going to settle with the Premier League. Who knows? So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm probably going to get Andy to come back and join me on another episode after the first couple of rounds of fixtures in the Premier League, because I think because we'll be getting towards the end of the transfer window then. I wouldn't be surprised if Man United dip their toe in maybe once more, maybe a midfielder.
Because
you've got Fred and McTominay.
Yeah,
they're all right, but
there's talks of Ruben Neves from obviously Wolves.
Yeah.
Wilfred and Ndidi, Leicester. But then we got to ship out a few players.
Yeah, I'd be surprised
if Matic.
Matt is obviously staying because he's got a new deal. But I think that's more. I think he'll be at the club long term and he'll become more of an ambassadorial role in the end, or maybe even coaching.
I hope so. I do like one now.
Yeah, he's class. All right, well, we're going to bring this episode to a close there. I think we've covered a lot of stuff in this episode, really.
Compared to the last time.
Yeah, and I think this is a cracking start to season 2. Again, though, so I'll put it out there for anyone that wants to get in contact with the show. We have the TikTok channel, which is talk.football.hd. We also obviously have the Facebook page, which is Talk Football. We have Twitter, all the same name. It's all the same name. Instagram is the same name as the TikTok. So if you want to come on, make any comments on the videos, you can get in contact with us there. If you want to become a guest on the show, come on and talk about your club. So that's what we're all about. We can't do what we do without you guys listening, which is what we really appreciate. And we can't come up with the conversations to talk about unless we know that there's people out there that are going to want to talk about them. So, yeah, again, massive thanks for everyone that was involved in season 1, specifically, obviously, Andy, who came on and done the United pod, and of course, Paul, who has been, one of my best mates for the best part of, since we worked together many moons ago as teenagers. But,
that's bollocks.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's massive thanks to those guys, because I couldn't have done this pod without them. So that is episode 1 of season 2 of Talk Football Podcast. There we go. So it's going to be a goodbye from me, your host, Hodgie, and a goodbye from Mr. Reed.
I'll catch you all later.
We'll catch you later. And we're going to, like I say, Mr. Reed will be back. And we're looking forward to bringing you some really good pods and a few more guests to come on and join us. And we're hoping to get a bit of a multi-guest pod going, hopefully with a Derby fan and this Forest fan as well. So we will see you then on Talk Football. Thank you very much for listening.